We are live. We're live. So this means that people can join up. We have 15, 16, almost 1,600 registered people. Okay. So guys, if you're out there watching right now, we have 5 minutes until the webinar officially starts. So we're going to wait for everybody to kind of join the chat room. Actually, we have 4 minutes. We're going to be starting right at 3 p.m. on the dot. We have myself, Trevor Dayley, an amazing photographer who just happened to step away from his desk right now. Say hi, Trevor. Hi, Trevor. Oh, he's got his headphones in now. Hey, Trevor.
Hey, I missed
Hey.
it. Oh, you're turning on the voice again.
And we have Shivani here in our new studio. Ooh, show us the studio.
Really dark, so you can't really see much. But that's our white wall and our black wall. Oh,
This is nice. I didn't realize we were live already. This is good stuff. Are we?
Here's our studio.
We're live. We're going to be starting in 3 minutes. We're just waiting for everybody to kind of join up. We have a lot of people joining in right now. So everybody say hi. You guys can write questions over in the webinar chat room. And we're going to get started shortly. We'd love to see where you guys are coming from. So where are you guys all tuning in from? It's funny because I have to like say hello and then wait for like 30 seconds before we get. What's up, Antonio?
I'm kind of bummed. I'm not seeing my chat.
Hey, Cody. You don't see chat? It's up in the top right.
It went away. I don't know where it went.
What? There we go. Oh yeah. So like now all the locations are coming in. So we got Wales, Canada, Tucson, Toronto, Alaska, Quebec. By the way, I used to live in Canada. I lived in Vancouver for 2 years, and I'm missing it at this time in my life very much. Pakistan, wow, Sydney, Australia, Massachusetts, Jennifer, SoCal, nice. Trevor, thanks. I like that you're laughing like while you're, this is so clever of me. SoCal.
I'm trying to see where. Oh, it's SoCal. Nice. Yeah. Oh, but yours didn't actually go to everyone, Pi.
What's that?
Yours just went to you and I think. Yours is a private chat.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a bummer. Hey, I'm going to look for one image real quick, Trev. So if you want to chat with people while we're waiting for...
Hey, we got somebody from Turkey. I thought that's next week.
That doesn't... Oh, dad joke. Shivy, did you catch that dad joke?
No.
Oh, you missed his dad joke.
Go to right here. That's to everyone.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, to everybody. Oh, now you have to switch the... there's a little thing that lets you chat with everybody, Trevor.
Yeah, no, I got mine set to everybody.
Oh, good call.
Yeah. Paul says, will there be a repeat link to this webinar? Yes, Paul, I believe they're recording it. Hey, Lori, how you doing? I know Lori. Lori and Debbie, I believe. If that's who's talking there. Workshop would be amazing. I would love to go to Vancouver. I heard it's really expensive to live there.
It used to be actually very, very affordable. The real estate was kind of expensive, but it was really affordable because the US dollar was very strong there until recent years, and not so much.
Yeah, they had like a huge real estate boom, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Steve, Stephanie Williams, Trey, Nigel, Chris, Angel, Lori. Yes, Debbie's sick. Awesome. Jenna. Hey, thanks. Keto success. Look at that. Somebody's even mentioning my keto success. I like that.
Heck yeah, baby.
Let's see if they mention pie success. No, nothing yet.
Never had any success.
So I imagine this part, before we put this out there on the rebroadcast, this is not going to be there, right? I mean, we don't want people to be...
Yeah, it'll be cut out for sure.
Awesome.
We'll cut this part out. And it's actually 3 o'clock, and we are ready to get started. So welcome everybody to Smart, Simple, Creative Speed Lighting. We have Trevor Dayley. Trevor.
Wait, I'm looking for my intro music. Dun, 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 dun.
Do Sorry, I didn't have it queued up, man. My bad. We have Trevor Dayley, amazing photographer out of Arizona, and you actually, in addition to being a wedding photographer, you actually work for Magmod, right, in their marketing side?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, I've been shooting weddings for nearly 10 years, and it got to the point where I've been wanting to spend a lot more time with my family. So I'm trying to have more weekends home, and I wanted to obviously stay in the industry and keep shooting weddings because it's what I love doing. So it was a perfect fit coming over and helping Magmod, basically running their marketing for them. So absolutely love it. Best of both worlds.
It's a very cool company to be with. We love Magmod. They're great partners of ours. And we have Shivy, one of our awesome, talented shooters for Linear Jirsa photography. And she's one of our writers, and she just kind of does a whole heck of a lot behind the scenes here and on camera. So Shivy, say hi.
Hi, everyone. I'm not going to be talking a lot throughout this, so you're going to have to bear with the two dads and their dad jokes throughout this entire hour of broadcasting, but good luck with that.
She'll keep us on point, I'm sure. You say that now, but seriously. As soon as we start getting on a tangent, she's going to pop in.
Yep.
So, well, let's jump in, and I'm going to go ahead and get this party started. And guys, by the way, if you guys have any questions whatsoever, we have the chat room. Shiv's going to be watching the chat room to see what questions you guys have, and she's going to be feeding us those questions as we go. So please, 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 we want you guys to be involved and to talk and to let us know your questions as we go. We're not going to have a designated Q&A time after this is over, so we feel like it's more interesting if you're asking your questions as we're going through. And Holly, we will have a rebroadcast, and it'll be available online. So this is going to be a free webinar that we're going to make available to everybody. So, but being here live means that you can ask questions. All right. So let's jump in. And obviously the title of this is Smart, Simple Speed Lighting. And what we're trying to do is help all of you guys have a great idea and an understanding of just how powerful these little guys are. And here's the thing, is I want to start this off. I know Trevor, okay. This is a Profoto B1. And I want to start this off with this note of what is the difference between these two guys right here? And the thing is that a lot of people think that they're not gonna be able to create amazing studio quality images or do location lighting unless they have one of these ginormous monsters. And that's simply not true. In terms of quality, they're virtually identical. A good quality speed light is gonna be the same as a studio light, at least for the most part. In terms of recycle times, well, yeah, this is gonna recycle a bit quicker because it does have a gigantic battery on it, and it's built for durability. It's built to be taken on location and give you a lot of power, but that's really the main difference, is the power. So what is the difference between this and this? Well, this guy packs about 8 to 10 of these guys in one single shot. This is equivalent to 500 watt seconds of power, or it is 500 watt seconds of power. This guy is equivalent to roughly 50 to 60 watt seconds of power. That means that you don't really have to know what the watt seconds means. It just means that understand that if you want this much power, you need about 8 to 10 of these guys. So what we're talking about is power and portability and convenience. But in terms of the images that you can create, there's no difference between this and this for most situations. Obviously, those that know me know that I love big, large studio strobes in the right places, but they also know that I'm not going to carry these things around on location shoots. And really on weddings and that kind of stuff, I try to shy away from big guys quite a bit. And Trevor, you kind of have a story behind that, right?
Yeah, it's funny. My story is that when I got started out, like most photographers, I started doing natural light. And then I would see these photographers, shoot with big modifiers and big softboxes and so forth. And I thought, that's what I need to do. So as I learned light, I started investing in Alien Bees. At the time, Profoto was out there, but they had the big, the big D1s and the big huge batteries and so forth. And so it was really for mainly just studio stuff.
Yeah.
But I had some Alien Bees at the time, and I would go around and I would shoot with them, and I loved it. And I thought I was the bomb, right? I mean, I was, but
that's
no,
a good phrase. I saw Shivy smiling right there.
But I thought I looked amazing out there because I had all this big gear with me, and it was actually quite funny because I actually went to Costco, got myself one of those red foldable carts, and then I MacGyvered it. I actually took a stand.
Like a golf cart?
No, no, no. It's like those soccer mom carts. You know, the ones that they throw all the stuff in and they take them out to the park on Saturdays.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and it collapses in your car. Anyhow, and then I actually took a stand and I put zip ties all around the stand so that I had a stand that was literally attached to this cart. So I'd throw all my gear in there, and then when I wanted to use it, I would just put my Alien Bee on top and I would throw it up, and I could literally just pull this around. I was looking for photos. Denise Salcido, if you're out there, I know she has one, a good one of me walking around with this really embarrassing looking cart. But my story is this, that I actually went to shoot a wedding in California at Casa del Mar in Santa Monica. And the couple said, "Hey, Trevor, we want some photographs at sunset down by the ocean." And I was like, "Yeah, let's do it. Like I can see it. It's right there. Let's go." So I started pulling my cart along the sand. And after about 30 yards, I realized that I still had about 200 yards left to go. And I was pulling this 70-pound sled across the sand because it would have my camera bag in it and everything. And these wheels weren't moving. And I said, "You know what? Forget this." I left it there. I grabbed some strobes out of some flashes. The Canon at the time, I think I had 430s, if I remember right. But I grabbed them out of my bag and I gave them to my assistant and I said, "Let's just go." And I seriously, at that point, I didn't even care if somebody tried to steal that cart because I knew it'd be quite funny to watch him try to pull this 70-pound bag across the sand anyways. So I left it and I said, "I'm done." And at that shoot, when I did it, I looked at the results that I got and I said, "Why am I carrying all this big light around with me when I can create what I need with these small, convenient, compact lights?" And so it was literally at that wedding that I went home and I said, "I'm done with those." And I started shooting from that point on with just small strobes. And I've had kind of this evolution of time. I mean, I started with small strobes and big modifiers and then smaller modifiers. And now I've gotten to the point where I feel like for the last 2 years or so, I kind of got a system down that I absolutely love and have everything on me at all times and makes it really simple to work with.
Well, and honestly, like the way that we have gone from speedlight modification from this stuff to, I mean, we used to be using like those, like Westcott has a great series of kind of modifiers, like umbrellas and different modifiers. They're fairly large. They're great. They're really nice quality stuff. There's also a lot of smaller things. We used to use a lot of Velcro stuff and a lot of just cumbersome kind of gizmos and doodads to control the light on this. And since Magmod has come out, we have all enjoyed basically having a very simple, very easy way of adding modifiers and simply modifying our light however we need with a snoot, with a grid. And those are the things we're going to be talking about. And so we are going to be showing a lot of Magmod products. Why? Because we love Magmod stuff so much that we partnered with them. So anybody that's a premium member actually gets discounts to Magmod products at any point in time. We use them a lot in our training. We will teach and train with literally everything. But I'm also going to show you the things that I love. And same with Trevor because, well, it's not really selling stuff when we're showing you guys things that we're actually using every single day.
And I think that's important to mention, Pi, is, I mean, the two of us, even though we like to do education, we like to teach and share as much as we can, we're both out there shooting. You know, this last weekend I had 2 weddings.
Yeah.
I shot a full day on Saturday and I turned around and did the same thing on Sunday. And so these are the things that we actually use, and so it's kind of fun to share with other people so they can discover it for themselves.
Yeah. And Diane, I see a comment up there. We actually have presented an idea to Magmod to create an entire series through SR Lounge of formal education for Magmod products, start to finish on every single modifier. So if that's something you guys all want, send Magmod a little email, let them know, because it would really help a lot to know like what the interest is in something like that. But all the stuff that we're going to be talking about through this free course is going to be basically talking about things that we talk about through Photography 101, Lighting 101, Lighting 201. We have our Wedding Workshop series. Everything is available to you in depth on SR Lounge Premium, and we'll give you guys a discount code at the end of this webinar to have like a little benefit. But we're going to make you stay tuned because we want to get to the good stuff now. So, Shivy, did you have anything to say, or do you want to give it to him now, or do you want to make him wait?
Yeah, I was going to give it to him now just in case.
Oh, fine.
Because there's going to be people watching it after the broadcast. So there is a discount code for SR Lounge Premium, which includes premium members do get a discount to Magmod products. And the discount code is webinar75. So you guys get to enjoy $75 off premium. And that's it for me. Go back.
Awesome. So let's get to the first part of this webinar, which is basically smart lighting. And Trevor, do you want to kind of jump into this?
Yeah, I mean, I would be happy to. It kind of goes along with what I was just referring to with regards to, basically using a more compact system. Because like I said, for me, what I realized was when I was on weddings, the thing that was not so smart when I was trying to carry around all this gear with me and just making it difficult for myself and, back aches and shoulder aches and everything hurt, So getting to a smaller compact system was really probably the smartest thing that I've done. And I actually got my bag back here. Let me see if I tilt my camera down.
Yeah, I'd love to see it
there. So this is literally, my bag when it zips up, I'll have everything inside here. And so it's quite smart to have all your lights and your modifiers and everything. So you can imagine, if I open this bag up, zippers are hard these days. I have everything, it just pops right up. So, let's see if I can even tilt this a little bit without stuff rolling out.
So you just leave the modifiers attached to your flashes?
I literally just leave them attached. And you can see I'll even just kind of pull them out of my bag that way. But
Trevor lacrosse stick.
That's right. That's my lacrosse stick. But yeah, this is for example, this is the mag bounce. I use this for a lot of stuff. We'll talk a little bit about it later. You got the sphere over here. Same thing. I just leave them all just attached to my flashes so I don't have to worry about it. And then what's nice is at the end of the day, I just close it down and zip it up. And it makes it so much easier for me. That's probably been the smartest decision I've made with regards to my flashes is having those things on me at all times. So I'm not carrying around umbrellas. I'm not carrying around soft boxes. I've broken a lot of those things in the past. And so it just got to the point where I was just I need, like I said, something more compact, a little bit simpler. I also love it because if I'm shooting in the rain or the wind or the dust, we have a lot of great dust storms out here in Arizona. All that stuff, I don't need to worry about them getting dirty. I don't know if you can tell, but these guys, they're actually pretty dirty. The other day I was shooting in there's a lot of dust flying around, and actually it fell on the ground. I love being able to just pick these things up and wash them and be done with it. So, that to me is probably, when I think of smart, I just think of really smart, easy, make it simple on yourself. Because the last thing you want to do when you're trying to be creative is worry about gear.
I agree. And the best gear is the stuff that you have on you, right? So whatever you're actually taking with you. And I've been in so many situations where I have my B2 or I have my B1 and I just don't want to get it out of the bag. I'll be at a wedding. I'm you know what? I don't want to carry that to this place. I love it. It's just, I've come to get used to shooting with my Speedlights, and in very specific circumstances do I go back to larger lights. And it's usually when I have a client where they tell me up front that, hey, family formals are the biggest thing for us. They say specifically that these are the things that we want to hang on the walls. We want to go for that editorial quality light. And I know that I can do the same thing with Speedlights by Speedlight stacking. It's actually something we talk about in Lighting 201 is if you don't have big pieces of gear, we'll teach you how to Speedlight stack. And we'll talk about it a little bit in this. But when I have a client that specifically says that this is what they want, I'll take the B1 or the B2 out, usually the B2 because it's a little more compact, a little bit easier to use, and it still gives me enough power.
Yeah.
So those are the specific circumstances, but for the most of the day, it's going to stay in the bag. I don't need that much light when I'm dealing with just a couple and when I'm going on the move and I'm running down to the beach, like you said. It's just too cumbersome to carry along. So,
yeah. And the biggest thing with that, for example, when I'm shooting studio type work, and I have somebody that's stationary, I'm doing headshots, I'm doing, something that's more studio oriented where I'm not moving around a lot like I am on a wedding day. I love those big lights. There's nothing, right now that's creating this wrapping light around me. I'm using 2 big lights. But again, when it comes down to being smart and actually making it simple on a wedding day, I love my Speedlights. It's the easiest thing to do. In fact, it's kind of funny. The first time I ever second shot a wedding for somebody, I believe the guy's name was John from Aquario Studio in Southern California, if I remember correctly. I asked him, I said, hey, what's the one piece of gear that you recommend for every photographer? Or what's the one piece of gear that I should get? And at the time, Magmod didn't exist. This was, again, about 10 years ago. But I remember he said, hey, you got to get a Speedlight. And I was like, what's a Speedlight? What do I do with a Speedlight? And he said, yeah, it's great. You put it on your camera and then you can move it around and stuff like that. And it's funny. I don't think John knew how great that advice was going to be later on for me. Because when I finally took that advice to heart and said, I'm going to get Speedlights, that was the best thing I ever did.
For sure. So let's talk for a second about the ones that we're going to be using. And I have here the 600EX RT2, 600EX2 RT, whatever. I think you're using the 600EX RTs, right?
I am. I can't keep up with you, Pi.
And Taib asked, we had a question there that said, those that have followed like a lot of my courses know that I use a lot of different pieces of gear, and I'll teach everything because I use everything. Like I used to use old Vivitar flashes that you hook up to a pocket wizard, and they were tanks and they would last. And then the Photixes came along, they built in the radios, and they were fairly inexpensive. There's a lot of different flashes out there. You can get them down to $100. Here's my thing, is a lot of the $100, $150 flashes are Chinese knockoffs, which is fine when you're starting out and you're getting into speed lighting. It gives you something to work with. And I honestly know a lot of professionals that have a great time using things like a Yongnuo and those kind of different, basically Chinese branded flashes. But I have a hard time with them. I have a hard time with their consistency, with their autofocus, with just the consistency of firing. And the reason why is because we're usually dealing with a lot more complex situations. When we're on the dance floor, when we're shooting at a wedding, our weddings have 200, 300, 400, 500, even up to 1,500 people. You need something that can carry a powerful radio and can actually transmit consistently for these types of jobs. And so Photix is a great flash. The Mitros Plus system is fantastic. The only issue I had with it was the AF is not quite as strong as the 600EX RT2s. Like a Canon branded flash on a Canon camera is going to give you better autofocus assisting. Just like a Nikon flash on a Nikon camera or anything else is going to give you slightly better functionality. But the Photixes were $100, $150 cheaper, and they are fantastic. They're a really great system, and they offer the same thing. So moral of the story is you kind of pick what's in your budget and make it work until you want to move to something that is basically just going to make your life a little bit easier, but it's going to cost more money. So you can do the same thing with any of these speed lights. They're virtually the same. So that's kind of my thoughts. And I think Felicity, I think I mentioned kind of my thoughts on the Yongnuo wireless triggers and stuff like that. I would honestly ask the community, because I know the community has had great luck with those kind of things.
Can I add my 2 cents to that?
Yeah,
so here's the interesting thing. When these flashes came out, which is about 4 years ago, right? When the Mark III came out,
yeah,
maybe a little over 4 years ago, in fact, 4.5, I guess. I picked up 2 of them right away so they could speak to each other. And then I actually ended up buying 2 more later on, maybe 6 months later. So I actually had 4 of them. And yeah, they were $600 at the time, and it was a good chunk of money. I hated spending that much money. My wife didn't know at the time. I hope she's not watching. No, but they're expensive. They're expensive. But here's the thing. I still have all 4 of them to this day. Now, they've been dropped and beat up numerous times. Now, some of them are kind of funky. Now that I've dropped them so many times, the AF might not work. Or one of them, for example, it doesn't, when I fire on manual, it will skip a few frames. Like, it's weird. But I just need to send it in and get repaired. But here's the thing. I bought those Yongnuo ones. And this is not anything against Yongnuo. I'm just speaking exactly what happened to me. I thought, I'm going to try these out. People are talking about them. They're $90. I had them 1 month. And not only were they killing my batteries a lot quicker, but also this battery cover, I don't know if anyone else has the same problem, but this guy, when I closed it, right, it would pop up. Like it would actually come up, like the little piece on it broke. And so now I have these 2 flashes that basically serve me no good. Yeah, I only spent $180 on them, but that's $180 that I'm not even using now. So they are more expensive, but if it were me and I had to do it all over again, I would just go with the Canon ones. They're a lot more dependable and durable, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, the moral of the story is in everything. You get what you pay for, kind of thing, right? And the bottom line, though, is, like a lot of us will go out and we have the budget to go and buy a Mercedes or a BMW because we want that quality, want whatever, and not to say that it's going to last you that much longer, but a lot of us have the budget of a Honda Accord. And when I had the budget of a Honda Accord in photography, I went and I bought those items because that's what I had the budget to do, and I just made it work. So this, I bring this up to say that I know a lot of people mention, like Paul mentioned that he has the Yongnuos, and a lot of people are mentioning that they have them and they work fine. Absolutely, jump into something like that. If you don't have it in the budget, know, like what Trevor said, that they are going to be less reliable. They are going to break more often. In the long run, you're going to spend more money and more time. And really, time, you guys need to think about, time is your money. You're going to spend more time in troubleshooting and doing all those kind of things. But by any means, like, use what you got type thing, because there's literally no difference in what you can do with these flashes as long as they're firing.
Yeah, they all create light. I mean, they all create light. And that's what we're here to talk about anyways, whether it be Profoto, Alien B, Canon Speedlights, Youngno, it doesn't matter, Photex, they all create light. And so it really comes down to how we're going to use that light to make those images pop and work.
Exactly. And that being said, buy Canon. Just kidding. So let's jump into, well, we had a couple of different like rules of thumb. And by the way, I heard of where that saying comes from, and it's like kind of gruesome. So we probably should not. Just general rules. How about that? General rules on smart lighting setups. So do you want to take this away, dude?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to smart lighting setups, so basically for me, I have a very simple light that I use literally at every single shoot. I don't use it for the entire shoot, but it's like my safe, smart light. And all it is those who have seen me talk about this before, you know what I'm going to say. In fact, somebody might even beat me to it in the chat. But I call it my double rainbow light because it's magical. Is that how you do it, Pi?
Yeah, it's perfect. Good job.
Can I see it? How do you do it?
No, you're not getting it right now.
But I call it my double rainbow light. All it is I have one light to my right, one light to my left. I push them out about 30 degrees in each direction. And essentially what I'm doing is I'm just creating this nice light coming from both sides. Now, in order to do this, you want to make sure that you don't have the shadows crossing. Like I don't want a shadow going on one nose down the other. But what I'll do is I'll just put them at a little bit different distances. So I'll have one that will be my main light because it'll be a little bit closer. And if I double the distance on the other one, then I'm only getting a quarter of the power on that other light, even though they're set at the same power. I won't even get into ratios, but I'll just use the inverse square law for for advantage. What do you guys talk about the inverse square law? And
yeah, that's in Lighting 101. So we go through in depth.
Yeah, those are awesome tutorials. I love those guys. But so basically, I'll use that for my advantage, and I'm just creating this double rainbow light. I'll just let me just share my screen real quick, and I'll show you one quick example of what a double rainbow light looks like.
That's
so
my face. Wonderful.
Did you see your face there? So this is a great example. So this is basically, I was actually shooting family photos, and I had my double rainbow. I had one to my right, one to my left, and it was just a very, very simple light, but it lights up my couple evenly, and I can get nice light and shadows across them. It's very like I said, smart because it just fills in the places that I need it to fill in. But it's super easy. Again, one light to my left, one light to my right, about 30 degrees, firing them both towards my couple. I use this at all my different shoots that I do. I'm going to stop sharing here. Every time I'm shooting couples, I'm using my double rainbow light, and it's usually one of the first lights I'll go to. And then after that, I'll typically kind of branch off from there after I get that safe, smart shot. No,
I love that. And for those of us that don't understand the technical term double rainbow, that's a cross-lighting setup. So cross-lighting or double rainbow lighting, as Trevor would call it, is fantastic. And what I was going to do is also show something. And what I loved about your image that you showed, Trevor, is that you actually retain shadows on the subjects. And I think where cross-lighting can go a little bit wrong is when you don't space out the lights, or when the lights are at the exact same power and the exact same distance on each side of the camera, you end up with flat lighting. And flat lighting is basically equivalent to just firing a direct flash. Yeah. So I have an example of that. I would use Trevor's photographs because they're not very good, but I just felt like that would be me. So I'm going to use my own. This is a shot that I did a while back. Trevor's photos are amazing, by the way. I'm going to bag on him the whole time, but he's an amazing photographer. So
hey, we're brothers.
This is a shot that I took quite a while ago. I mean, this was back in 2009. And this was using that cross lighting or double rainbow setup. You can see by the shadows kind of coming off on each side. The issue is that because there's not one flash that's more powerful than the other, is you kind of end up with just a very flat looking photograph. And there are a little bit of shadows on the faces, but this is what gives people that like cut out and kind of pasted look. When you end up shooting light directly onto them without retaining any shadows, it's not necessarily a bad look by any means. It just means that, well, it's going to look a little bit kind of unnatural, like cut and paste. And you can also see how shorter people, like our children, our tiny people, shorter people, that just doesn't make any sense. But our tiny people will create shadows going on both sides. So you can see how his head creates a shadow on that side and on this side. So that's kind of one thing to be mindful of when you're doing a cross-lighting setup is, like Trevor said, make sure that you vary the distances, vary the power so that you retain your shadows in the image, and so you have a more dynamic looking photograph. And we'll talk about this a little more as we go. By the way, I'm going to be showing all the images raw, just so I can show you guys what they look like out of camera. Trevor's cheating and he's showing you guys edited photos, so don't trust him.
Actually, mine are right out of the camera as well, actually.
Sure they are.
I'm going to interrupt you guys. So we have a lot of questions about the setup, your rainbow setup, and also the modifiers that you're choosing to use when you do this setup. So I think we'll go with Trevor first, and then we'll go back to Pi.
All right. So when I do, so first off, I heard somebody say, well, "What is double rainbow?" So, and again, the reason I come up with these silly terms is because it's easy for me to remember. And second off, when I'm talking to an assistant, it's really easy for them to just, I don't know. You have those, what's it, your own custom little terms, right?
First, you got to go double rainbow.
Double rainbow, exactly. And your clients get all excited because they're like, "We're getting shot with double rainbow," and I'm like, "Yeah, it's magical. You'll love this." All right. So again, all it is, guys, is just two lights, one way, I shouldn't say way, 30 degrees, 40 degrees to my right, one 30 to 40 degrees to my left, one a little bit closer than the other one. And I love to use the mag bounce when I'm doing this, especially because a lot of times I'm doing it outdoors. And so essentially all I'm doing is I'm just taking that light and it's coming out, large, efficient spread of light. Occasionally, if I'm looking for something where I don't want to light up the floor, or maybe there's trees or something around them and I want to keep maybe my light just directly towards them, then I'll actually use the mag sphere. So I'll actually point this right towards them. I think one mistake that or I shouldn't say mistake, but I get this question a lot. People will say when you're using the mag sphere outside, you use it pointed up. And I don't do it pointed up when I'm outside. When I'm outside and I want that, there's nothing to bounce off of, no ceiling to bounce it, then I'll have it pointed right towards my clients. But this is kind of a funny thing. I didn't realize this at the time. When I saw people doing this originally, I was like, why are they putting a grid and then a sphere? Like, it made no sense to me because I was thinking that basically that light is going to come out of here, hit my sphere, and then bounce everywhere. But really what this does is it just focuses my light, and then it comes through this kind of diffusion, I guess you could say. But what I use it for is it just essentially helps on the transition on the softness of the edges. So as I'm firing it on my clients, I get this soft edge transition around them as opposed to kind of a hard light fall off. And so that's exactly what I'll do is I'll just use these lights. I see one question is no softbox or anything, and I don't use any kind of softbox or any modifiers anymore. Big modifiers. Everything I use is all very compact, and it's working absolutely fantastic for me. It works really well. I think there's one other question or one other photo here. I'm just going to show one example. Let me go back and share my screen here.
While you're looking for that, I was going to mention that Bjorn, one of the things that we do in Lighting 101 and 201 is really help users to demystify what a modifier does, so that before you even purchase a modifier, you know exactly what it's going to do. Before you even go out and put it on your light, you know what it's going to do, whether it's going to diffuse your light, whether it's going to create a more specular light. So those are really helpful things to kind of understand, so you're not going and just picking up every single modifier you can buy. But yeah, you can get great soft quality light used correctly with very small modifiers. And granted, it's not going to be like a giant softbox, but it's still going to look great.
Yeah. So you can see my screen now. Is that right, Pi?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So like this photo right here, all I'm using is just that sphere pointed right at my couple. This is actually more of what I would call a very simple light, because I'm not doing that cross light or the double rainbow light. I'm just doing one sphere to my left, about maybe 30, 40 degrees to my left, pointed right towards the couple, about 8 feet up, about 8 feet away from them. And I mean, it's a very simple light, but you see there's a nice soft fall off kind of towards the bottom of her dress. It's something that really works well for me. And what I love about it most, I don't know if you guys are even selling these anymore. You're not selling your undefined bags, is that right?
No, yeah, we stopped selling them.
Yeah.
I think B&H still has some, but.
Okay, well, if B&H has them, this is what I love. I actually take this bag, I wrap it around a spider holster, and then I just toss my modifiers right inside here. So I'll have my flash, and I'll even throw some modifiers in there. It's the undefined hip bag, and I mean, it works so perfectly for me. There's no reason for me to carry around all that big stuff anymore.
Yeah. Can you go back to your photograph real quick? I wanted to point out a couple things.
Sure.
There's actually a couple slides in Lighting 101 that I wanted to show, and your image, this is tricky when you're showing an image, but I'm talking. I don't know how to do this. Well, why don't you talk about this? Trevor, can you talk about the ambient flash balancing on that photograph?
Do you want me to say what you're going to say?
Exactly.
Let me think here. What would Pi say about this image? I think probably what you're going to refer to is the fact that there's the sun behind them, and this would actually be a very bright time of the day still. And so basically, in order to make this work, I am going to have to boost my power a bit in order to make those skies pop. This is not Photoshop. These skies are real. But basically, in order to make this happen, what I would do is I would underexpose it in the camera. So instead of exposing, like if I'm shooting this at my client, I'm not going to meter it perfectly directly, you know, and have a perfectly exposed photo. I'm going to underexpose it by a stop, maybe a stop and a half, or even 2 stops occasionally, so I can get that saturation of the colors in the sky. And then I'm going to use my flash to light them up and balance that out with the ambient.
And Trevor, did you use a CTO for this?
I didn't use a CTO, though this could be a great opportunity to use one to kind of give them some extra warmth, but I didn't have to use it here. That's a great question, though.
Awesome. And Lisa's asking, she's saying she's confused. And of course you're confused, Lisa, because Trevor's talking right now. And,
exactly.
Just kidding. So confused by the degrees. When Trevor's referring to 30 degrees to the left or right, he's speaking from the camera's perspective. So if you think of shooting your subjects, 30 degrees left or right of you is from that perspective, not the client side. So, and what I want to talk about too with Trevor, you mentioned in that photograph is your ambient light balance to your flash power. And there's 2 specific slides that I wanted to show in Lighting 101. Give you guys a little taste test. All right. So let me pull this up full screen. Oh, that's not even a high resolution image. Oh, okay. So we'll turn out the lights so we don't have anything distracting us. And I'm going to turn this thing up too. So what we're talking about right now is flash to ambient balancing. And what that means is how bright do you want your ambient light to be? This is basically your camera exposure. How bright do you want the camera exposure to be versus how much flash power do you want to add into a scene? Now, what I'm referring to is if you want to create a natural look to your images where the subject is just a little bit lifted out and it still looks like natural light, then what ends up happening is you want your ambient light or your camera exposure to be on the brighter side, and you want to use less flash power, so a darker flash power. So this gives you a more natural look, and these are the examples here. So you can see that this is a very bright image to begin with, and all we're doing is kicking a little bit of added light just to lift the subject out of the frame. And this is actually done in Lighting 101, and all these images are created with an on-camera hot shoe flash. So we actually teach you how to fire the flash off of different objects and reflectors to create off-camera light. So we're creating off-camera light using a standard hot shoe flash, and this is basically how we teach the entire course. With gear that you already own, we're going to show you how to create off-camera light. Same thing on this second image. This is the ambient exposure, 1/100 of a second, f2.8, ISO 800. It was a very dark kind of sun setting kind of scene, and we're just adding a soft little bit, maybe 1/16th power bouncing off of a reflector to the left and filling into her. Same thing here, 1/100 f2.8, ISO 100, adding a soft kick of light, and we're keeping the ambient light bright. So when you want a natural effect, you leave the ambient exposure brighter, you let the highlights blow out, and then you add a little bit of flash just to lift the subject out of the image. When you want a dramatic look, this is where you're going to take that ambient light exposure and you're going to pull it down in camera. So you're going to go with a darker ambient exposure. And the easiest way to do this is just choose what you want the scene to look like first. And you'll see that in every one of these first photographs, I'm just choosing what I want my scene and my sky to look like. I'll expose first for the scene, and then I simply add the light. And once again, this is all Lighting 101. So this is all on-camera flash that's being modified to look like an off-camera light. So here, we're adding more flash power. We're going with a brighter flash power with a darker ambient setting, and we're getting a more dramatic look to the photographs. So in the second shot, we're bouncing to the left and right onto our subject. In the third photograph, and this one is also gelled, which we're going to talk about. The third photograph, we're bouncing from the left onto our subject. So let me go ahead and turn back on the lights in Lightroom. So I bring that up because a lot of people are confused by, well, it seems like I don't want to flash because I can't get a natural look out of my images. And that's not true at all. Flash can be corrective, it can be stylistic, it can be anything you want it to be. And if you want something more natural, you just leave your camera exposure brighter and the flash power lower. And if you want something more dramatic, you bring the camera exposure down and you bring the flash power up. Does that kind of make sense?
Yes.
Thanks, Trevor. I'm glad that you understood. Thank you.
No, and you know, there's some questions that are coming in the chat, and I'm trying to stay on top of them as well, and hopefully I can answer some of them with just via text. But Pi, you're absolutely right. I think one of the interesting things with regards to Flash is some people go, I don't like Flash because the images are too flashy. It looks too much like Flash. And I don't think they realize that flashes can be used as tools just to add a little extra light, whether it be to add a little catch light to the eye, whether it be, you know, just to add a little bit extra brightness to the shadows where there might be shadows. So it doesn't have to be a flashy image by any means. But yeah, so that slide and that whole lighting 101 is perfect to kind of explain that situation and how you can basically use Flash and still make it look very natural if you want. In fact, I have some images I can show you guys that we can go over that a little bit.
For sure. And so, all right, so that being covered, I say we talk about the next smart rule, which is Sunny 16.
I'll let you take this
is one of my favorites. Sunny 16 was a film rule that basically said, like for journalists, if you go out in sunny weather, like midday sun, 1/100 of a second, f16 and ISO 100, or 1/200 of a second, f16 and ISO 200, that gives you a rough, proper exposure, basically. So my kind of take on that is when in the sun, 1/1. And I'm going to say my take, but I'm sure somebody else has said this somewhere. I don't know if it has been used. This is my verbiage. But if someone else took it or used it already, don't blame me. I'm sorry. Anyway, what that means is when in the sun, you're going to shoot full power. So a good general rule of thumb, gosh dang it, I said rule of thumb again. A good general rule is 1/200 of a second, anywhere between f11 to f16, depending on what you want your ambient light to look like, and ISO 100. And then you simply set your flash power to full power, bring it about 10 feet away from your subject, and fire away. And I have a couple images to show you guys with this Sunny 16 rule, or when in the sun, 1/1. All right, so this is shot at 1/500 second at f11 and ISO 100. And you see that we have basically a silhouetted image, which I love, by the way. Like, I dig silhouettes. That's what this was shot for. In this exact same scene, literally, we're just moving a few steps over to the right side, and I'm just taking a different camera angle to put the sun behind the subjects. And this go around, I'm lighting for dramatic light. And so what I've done is we're at 1/100 of a second, f14 and ISO 100. I just chose where I want my ambient light to be, and then grab the flash 1/1 in the sun. There's no modifiers being used on this shot. It's just a flash placed to the camera left right here, firing into the girl's face. And one of our rules, again, that we talk about in lighting 101 and 201 is when you're dealing with couples, fire your flash into the girl's side. Why? Because in general, and again, this is a raw photograph, by the way. So in general, I have to mention that. I don't know why I have to mention that. Just feel like I need to say that. A girl is going to look more flattering when their face is lit versus when it's in shadow. And in general, guys look okay in shadow. They have, when they're in shadow, it looks dramatic. It looks manly. It has all that kind of look to it. So as a general rule, we light into her side. Now, there are obvious situations where compositional reasons or posing reasons where you have to change that. But all I would do with this shot, and I have a few different versions of this. So there's a different pose kind of going a little bit more ground. And then we did this. This is at f14. At f14, the sun actually turns into a starburst. So that's another reason for shooting with a closed down aperture. If your scene is beautiful and you want to show it all, well, if you shoot closed down, your sun will actually become the starburst pattern. You can put it right in between their faces, create a beautifully lit shot. And then all we would do with any of these is come in and we, again, in SR Launch Premium, we have the presets available to all of our users. So we would just come in and simply add a preset. If we want to go for a soft look to the color, if we want to go for something that's more vivid and punchy, we can punch it up with an HDR vivid color, and then just simply tone down the skin tone. So we have like an unenhanced skin, and all I would do is just bring this right over their skin and just kind of make their skin a little bit more neutral. And that's literally it. Okay, so you can go very quickly from in camera to whatever you want in that final look. And here's that reset look to a final image by getting it right first in camera. All right, so yeah. I'm gonna go back.
Pi, just to add to that, the biggest thing there is you just need to make sure that you are capturing that dynamic range, or I shouldn't say capturing it, but you're giving yourself something to work with, because sometimes people will shoot it so bright that they'll just blow that sky out. And when you try to bring those colors back in Lightroom, there's nothing to bring back. I mean, even in a raw image, if you're shooting it 3-4 stops too bright, that sky, it's lost. So.
And Heike asked a really great question, which is when pointing the light at the woman, what about in a same-sex situation? So with same-sex situations, I would kind of, there are times where you'll be able to know like which person likes to have a more masculine look and feel. Like I have times where my subject will tell me like, I want to look like Beyonce in this shot, and I'll know exactly who I want to make look dramatic versus who I want to make look more soft. There are also times where like they're just going to both kind of have a very neutral look. And in those cases, I wouldn't light as dramatic of an angle. I wouldn't put one of them in shadow. I would light it to be a little more soft on both sides. So hopefully that kind of helps out, Heike. But be sensitive to the situations and understand your clients, and you should be able to kind of gauge what you should do in those situations.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. So let's go on. I think you had one. Oh, wait, we did your rainbow.
Yeah, you know what I was going to mention too regarding that same idea is when you're looking for that balance, shooting the sky and that sunset shot, which is absolutely epic, you can do that same thing when you're indoors as well. So, I mean, when you're shooting indoors, like in a hotel, or let's say it's raining, for example, and you can't photograph outdoors, and so you got to do things indoors, or during a reception, and you're shooting those photos during a reception and people are dancing and having fun. Personally, I'm not a big fan of when the flash dominates the photograph. Like I want that flash to enhance or supplement that photograph, but I don't want it to dominate that photograph. And so again, when it comes down to like reception dance photos, for example, and people are having a good time, I like to keep it where I'm just underexposing a little bit. So in my meter, I'm looking in and I see, okay, I'm 1 or maybe 1.5 or 2 stops underexposed. So I'm getting all that room light. I'm shooting typically at a shutter speed of like 1/40th of a second. Where are you normally at during receptions, Pi?
Usually we have a little bit of a different approach, but it's very similar. I mean, we shoot typically higher shutter speeds, but it all depends on the ambient light in the room, right? If the ambient light's very dark, you can darken down and not have a shutter speed issue. We usually tell our people to start somewhere around 1/200 of a second, ISO 1600 to 3200, and f2.8, and then adjust from there basically what the ambient light is doing.
Gotcha. Well, see, I guess for me, I just love going with a slower shutter because a lot of times I'll get a little bit of motion in the photograph, but then I'll get that freeze frame. And so, I mean, here, I got a couple shots real quick. I'll just share these real fast here.
I think you're talking about on the dance floor specifically, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, when I'm going around the dance floor, for example, so the way I do the dance floor, again, I've evolved this many times. And I think I tell people all the time when you're out there and you're photographing, especially on the dance floor, is the best time to just experiment and have some fun and kind of discover what works for you with regards to lighting. But these are just reception photos where I just use the mag bounce on camera. I'll go back to my screen here and show you in just a second. But the mag bounce on camera, I'm walking around the dance floor. I'm doing a little bit slower shutter speed so you can see some of the people in the background. There's a little bit of action going on. But you see how he's frozen? You see how here they're frozen? So my flash is freezing that action, but yet I can go anywhere on the dance floor and get this nice, pretty light. And to me, it's not a flat light. If that was pointed right at my couple, then it would be more, right at them off camera, it'd be a little bit more flat. But when it's up with the mag bounce kind of elevated, I get that little bit of a shadow underneath their nose, what we call paramount or butterfly light. But I love being able to just move anywhere around the dance floor and be able to hit these photographs. Very, very simple. Without having to worry about, are they facing towards my light on the corner of the dance floor? Where are they at? Does that make sense?
No, absolutely. And
so this is.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, so this is literally when I'm running around the dance floor. By the way, those photos were just done Sunday, like just a couple days ago on that wedding. But as I'm going around the dance floor, that's what I have right there. Just mag bounce on camera, and it's so easy to get that real simple, easy lighting. And the biggest thing too, Pi, is. Usually I get pretty close to people. I like to use a Sigma 20 or any wide lens. Canon 35 is another great one, or 2470 even. But I like to get real nice and close, and then I'll use this on a very low flash power, like 1/64th maximum, sometimes 1/128th power. So the lowest power possible. And with this nice efficient spread of light, I can go around and shoot as many photos as I want. I can even shoot on high speed if I want, and I'm not going to like burn out my flashes or go through batteries like crazy because I'm shooting at such low power.
For sure. And I loved, so when you said reception, I was kind of thinking of like toasts and that kind of stuff, but I was going to show, you're shooting around 1/40th. I want to show people, and we have, Shivani linked up a tutorial where we do this, we teach this technique in Lighting 101 as well, but this is dragging down to 1/5 of a second, f4, ISO 400, and then using direct flash, which you can use, you can do the exact same thing with the mag bounce. This is just a gel modified direct flash to freeze the subjects. So every one of these images, we just move around the dance floor and you're seeing like all the raw shots basically that are coming off. And it's really great. It adds a lot of motion and interest in the frame. And you can see that this is I wanted to do like a kind of a difference. So this is 1/20th of a second. And this was for a tutorial where this is 1/5 of a second. So you can see kind of how the same exact scene, it just eliminates that kind of nasty background, the exit signs, everything else. And it really puts the subjects into a state of action. So it has a really great effect. So you guys can decide on whatever you like. You can go from 1/60th down to 1/5 of a second and get these really cool kind of shots, especially with her mouth open. If I were her dentist, I'd be looking in there and being like, I wonder how many fillings she has, but I'm not her dentist, so I'm not going to do that because that'd be weird.
That would be weird.
Right? Okay. I have one other rule. Shooting indoors. When shooting indoors, and I'm going to pull up one of the images, but when shooting indoors, one of the things that we tell our shooters to do is a great place to start in terms of flash power is basically like the inverse of your ISO. And I know that sounds crazy, but it's not. All you're going to do is, let's say you're outdoors and you're shooting at, f16 and ISO 100. Well, we already talked about like when in the sun, 1/1, right? But when you're indoors and you're pumping the ISO up to say 1600 or 800, a great place to start is if you're shooting at ISO 800 and f2.8 and 1/200 of a second, start your flash out at 1/8 power and then adjust from there. So I have an example from this. And obviously stuff like this is going to depend upon distance to the subject, the type of modification that you're using, but it's a really great place to start. So this is at 1/200 a second at f2 and ISO 800. The flash is very far away at 1/8 power. If you go up to 1600 ISO, go down to 1/16 flash power. 3200 ISO, go to 1/32 flash power. So each adjustment, you're basically incrementally taking your flash up or down based on your ISO setting. And usually we base that off of f2.8. So if you're shooting like ISO 800 at f2, then maybe 1/16 power is enough power, or if it's very close to the dance floor, you might find that 1/32 is enough power. But start with the inverse of your ISO and then adjust accordingly.
I absolutely agree with you there. And I think that one of the biggest mistakes too is I think sometimes people will start to use flashes on too high a power, or they'll use it on ETTL or TTL. Now there's nothing against those modes. The ETTL or TTL is designed to help us. But what happens is when you use it, you're actually firing off two flashes. One that's going to go out. It's literally when you press that button, a little flash, a little pre-flash goes out. It bounces off your subject or whatever else is in the room. It comes back through the lens. That's why they call it TTL, through the lens. And then your camera reads it, and then it fires another flash. And when it does that, it could, depending on if it bounced off a window or a mirror or shiny wood or anything like that, if it comes back through the camera, you could have one flash that's really bright, another one that's really dark. And so it's really better, like you're saying, if you can learn these techniques, whether it be through your tutorials or whatever it is that you do, learn those techniques so that when you're firing your flashes, you can put them on manual. You can actually use those powers like 1/32 or 1/64 and not have to worry about whether or not your flash is going to be consistent based off of whatever it's bouncing off of and coming back through the lens. So really develop that technique and getting good on shooting with manual flashes.
And whenever, we talk about 1/200 of a second a lot, and that's because of the flash sync speed. Now, this is a topic that we dive into in depth in the full courses. We're not going to have time to do that really here. But it basically means that anytime you're shooting above 1/200 of a second, if your flash has high-speed sync or an option similar to that available, you can bring the shutter up past 1/200 of a second. You just lose power. Otherwise, you need to shoot below 1/200 of a second. Otherwise, your flash cannot synchronize with your shutter, meaning you'll fire the shot, but the flash isn't actually going to hit the subject in your frame. So what you might notice is if you're using an older flash system, it might actually allow you to shoot at 1/4 of a second, but you'll notice that half the image looks lit and half of it looks dark. This is because the flash could not fire in time before the shutter opened and closed. And again, I'd recommend looking at those courses to kind of learn more in depth, but that's a quick overview of why 1/200 of a second is that magic number. Yeah. All right, I say we get into some other fun stuff.
Yep.
Hi.
Yes.
So it's 3:50 right now, so we only have 10 minutes left.
Well, here's what I'm going to say is I think we're going to go a little bit over. We're going to give them a little bit of bonus content in this because we have a lot more stuff to do. So we're going to do a little bit. We have a lot more planned right now. And what we'll do is we'll leave 10 minutes as well for Q&A at the very end. So let's plan on going till 4:30 and finishing.
Okay.
Cool. Trevor, hope that's okay with you. All right.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Hey, Gerardo?
Gerardo.
Did I say that right? He says, could you quickly show, do you place the flash with Magmod if you turn the camera sideways? So I'll just show him really quickly while you're pulling up the next bit there. I think we're going to get into some simple, and then we got creative lighting too, right?
Absolutely. So let's, we'll do simple.
So
next.
Gerardo, basically, if I'm going portrait, it's just like this. Like that. Cool. Hope that helps.
So one of my favorite things to do is when, let's talk about a simple technique to, so this is the second part, smart, simple. Smart, having it everywhere. Here's a few different tricks that you can use. Simple. Well, when I'm going for a natural effect in a scene, one of my favorite things to do is to fire with the direction of the existing light in the scene. Now, the beautiful part about this is you can do it at any time of the day. You got poopy noonday light, you can make your subject look fantastic and create a really cool dramatic image. You got a great backlight that's not quite strong enough, you can create a more enhanced backlight. That's what I'm going to show you right now. So let's dive in. And this is what I want to show. So check this out. This was actually, we showed this during our Creative Live course, Incredible Engagement Photography. And you'll notice that I have my assistant here, and he's using a stacked set of flashes. So this is just 3 flashes stacked on a Westcott triple threat bracket. And I don't think these ones were gridded. You can use a grid to control the light spill, but because we're creating composite, we can control the light spill very easily with the composite process. But what we did was, you can see from the shot, this is 1/200 of a second, f16 and ISO 100. So what is that rule? Sunny 16 rule, right? So we start with Sunny 16, and we get this nice kind of exposure on the background. You can see this was taken at what time? 1:28 p.m. The sun is almost directly over our heads. We have literally no direction in the shadow, and they're just placed right in the sun. My assistant is holding these sticks up there, or the flashes up there. And by the way, the only reason why I'm using 3 is just to have a little bit of extra power if I need it, or to also have a little bit better recycle time. Because if I have 3 flashes up, I can shoot it at 1/4 power instead of 1/1, and I can get quicker recycles if I need to. So sometimes I'll use this.
It also looks a lot cooler too, though.
It does. It looks more impressive. I mean, anytime you can bust out 3 tools to do the job of 1, I really think you probably should.
Absolutely.
That's another general rule. You know what I mean? So when you look at this, what you'll see is here's a natural light shot. Here's a shot with the added flash. And then what I do is I pump down the background exposure. So we go up to actually f20 and ISO 100. And then we just take one shot where I remove everything from the frame. And all we do is we layer these shots and we get this. So I just layered the 2 shots. I properly exposed for the subjects, and I have the background darkened just a little bit more in post, and we just drop them in. And now we've created this really dramatic image that would look fantastic as a 40x60 frame in their home or wherever they want to go. And it was taken right in the middle of the day, and we matched the direction of light that was already existing in the scene. So we still have shadow, we still have kind of that dynamic look. And actually, I believe this was gridded because you can see how the flashes are only hitting the top part of their body. So I think all those flashes were actually gridded, which is probably why I was using 3, because whenever you're using a grid, you do lose a little bit of flash power. So this is...
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
So we've gotten a couple questions on Zoom. And I know, obviously, I think originally we got the question during the reception portion of what we were talking about, but I think now's a good time to bring it up because you were talking about grids as well. So if you want to kind of like touch on what what zoom you have these flashes on, for example, in this image, and then maybe talk about reception as well?
Yeah, so for in this image, I mean, so if you look back at the original shot and the plate shot, by the way, these are called plates. So when you take a shot just for the background without anything else in it, it's just a plate shot. And then when you bring into Photoshop, you just do a simple align and you can just clone whatever you want out. It's super easy. It takes less than 5 minutes. With the zoom in this shot, what I would always say is treat your zoom like a less powerful grid. So zoom is kind of your first step in controlling where the light spill is going to fall. So when it's widened out at 24 millimeters, that light is going to go everywhere in the scene. I'm just going to turn this off for a second. So when it's widened out at 24, the light's going to go out and hit everything. When you zoom in, it's going to come out as a little beam. Now when you add, like say for example, this is the mag grid. When you put a grid onto your flash, this is going to control that beam even further. So this is kind of controlling it further than even going to like say 100 millimeter zoom or whatever your flash might go up to. When you go to a snoot, this is one step beyond a grid. So now I can actually pin my light to like say a part of the face, as opposed to this is going to be more a part of the body, as opposed to zooming is going to hit, you know, a good portion of the body. So zoom, then grid, then snoot in terms of light control.
You know, Pi, one thing I was just going to add on the grid is that a lot of times I'll have people say, well, what does a grid do? What's the purpose of it? And the best way to explain it is if you just hold it up to your eyes. I cannot see to my periphery now. I can't see to the side. I can only see straight ahead. And that's exactly what we're doing to the light. Let's see if I add this right here. Ooh,
well, if you hold it back kind of closer to your face and you just turn the angle, all the viewers can see. I'll stop talking.
No, you're good. Oh, well, no. You can see. I can only see straight ahead, basically. And the same thing when I hold it up to the camera, you can only see straight ahead. You lose that periphery, and so basically, that's exactly what this does to your light. Is it's going to make your light go straight ahead, or create that small area where it's lighting up. And I saw somebody earlier. They'd mentioned in the chat. They said a kiss of light, basically, where you just want like just a little extra focus in some area of that photograph. These are perfect for that. To toss it on your flash. And somebody else had mentioned, Pi, instead of using 3 flashes there, maybe use a Pro Photo. And that could totally, I could see that happening easily, using a Pro Photo in a situation like that where you're trying to overpower the sun. Sometimes for me, I have these flashes on me, so I might as well just use them as opposed to trying to bust out more gear for my car.
There's also, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of shout out because there's a new piece of modification. And yeah, like that person said, whenever, when it comes to traveling, sometimes I'll take my B2 with me and just nothing else. Like if I'm doing a couple session, I'll just take the B2 because it gives me 250 watt seconds of power. I don't need 3 to 5 lights. It's just more convenient. But you literally could do the exact same thing. At a certain point, you're just talking about convenience, if that makes sense. But this guy can be another option to getting you more power. So this is the mag beam, I think it is, right?
Yeah.
We have inside of this is a Fresnel lens, and a Fresnel lens basically just concentrates light. So when the light spills out in each direction, the Fresnel lens basically pulls that light back in, and it's basically the exact same thing that's used in a lighthouse, like the lighthouses that have that beam of light going out for miles and miles. This is the exact same thing, but it's for your flash. So it'll concentrate that beam, which basically gives you more power at a greater distance.
Yeah. I mean, there's semantics involved here because you don't want to say more power because it's not increasing the power of your flash, but it definitely is increasing the brightness because all that light is going to one area. So it's like taking 3 flashlights and instead of having them spread that light, putting them all together and aiming it at one direction. So the mag beam, it would be perfect for a situation like that. You could have, I see it as if you're shooting, let's say across like maybe you have a couple by a waterfall or something and you want to be able to light them up, but you don't want your flash in the scene. You can actually go back 20, 30 feet, even further, use the mag beam to light them up. And then, like in that scene right there, I guess I got to be quiet so you can see your picture.
Oh, that's
well, I was going to say in that scene that you have, I would have put my flash right in between the pillars as opposed to on the door. And then that way, when I Photoshop it out, or I would just do it in Lightroom, use the spot removal, and it'd be a super easy spot removal. Because my mag beam would be positioned in an area that I could easily do that, remove it. So anyhow, I know we're going off on some tangents and we have a ton of stuff to still talk about, but yeah, I love that example.
No, I like that you just showed how you take my image better and do it more smartly. Like I said, whenever it comes to like making my life more difficult, I mean, you know, I choose that option. But I want to show you guys, so this was that dramatic look. This is matching the existing light direction for a natural look. So in this scene, this is again from Incredible Engagements. And from this scene, I have this nice backlight coming through from the sun, but on the subject, it just isn't giving enough separation. Like I want them to be separated from the background more than they are. And so what I did was I actually just added a flash behind them. And if the sun is very orange, like if it's high up in the sky, it's not going to be very orange, so you don't need to gel it. If it's low in the sky, it is going to be orange, so you want to gel it with a CTO. That's a color temperature orange gel. But either way, just match the direction of that light, and then what we end up getting is this. So you end up getting an image where it's much more backlit, but it looks as if the sun is what's backlighting them, when in reality, you can actually see one leg of that stand poking out on each side, and that's what we're using to light them. And so the final shot is this, and I just removed like that little flyaway underneath their chin, and we get that final image where it looks like it's a natural light image, but it's actually not. We're using flash in conjunction with natural light with the same light direction to kind of create a better looking image. So you can see the difference between these two. It's pretty dramatic in terms of how it pops.
Yeah. Hi, do you mind if I share a natural light?
Do it, baby. You have some really great examples of like natural to flash.
Yeah, I'll share that right now. Okay, so this image right here, it looks like a natural lit image, and by golly, there's a lot of natural light in this photograph. But the couple, this is actually, let's see what Lightroom tells me here. Let's see, I'm trying to pull up my settings here. So this was shot at 7:29. Now sunset on this day was about 7:15 or so. So this is actually after sunset, and I just basically brought my ISO. I was at what, 1600. My aperture was at 1.8, 1/60th of a second, shooting with my 85 1.2. And by doing that, I'm actually able to bring in and make it look like it's natural light, even though it's after sunset. But I wanted a little extra light on the couple, and so I added a flash there, just to subtly give a little bit more light so they weren't in the shadows. Because if I brought that exposure up in Lightroom, then I would make that sky too white. And I wanted a little bit of tint in that sky so it's not pure white. But here's kind of the fun part of this photograph. I'm gonna go back to my time setting here. So you're looking right up in the top here at 7:29. I'm gonna go back to the beginning here. This was at 7:08. Okay, so this is actually right when we got to the top of the mountain. I went and I shot them in these clothes, and then I had them change into their final outfit. So this is at 7:08, and I thought, okay, the sky is really white because the sun was super bright. It was still above the horizon a little bit. And so what I did was, it took me about 90 seconds. I pulled my flash out of my bag, popped it on my stand that I carry with me, put it up about 8 feet or so, and with I used the Mag Sphere on this one. I shot this image. So we got 7:10 with 18 seconds and 7:08 with 7 seconds. So about 2 minutes is what it took me to pull that out and get it set up. And you can see the entire, like how different those two images are. Let me just make that full screen.
And I want to point out too that you lit into the girl's face, you retained shadows by not lighting too flat. And the difference of dramatic versus natural in that is fantastic.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's one thing. So my light is to my left. So again, I'm looking at the couple. My light's to my left about, again, 30, 40 degrees. This is what I call my simple lighting. I just have it 30, 40 degrees to my left or my right. And then I have them looking towards that. And like you said, I have her highlighted. Now, again, taking the same idea, now I'm just going to leave my light exactly where it is. I'm going to change my position a little bit. I'm going to have him look towards her. And I get a totally different look. You know, I just move that sun to the right a little bit. And then, again, let me go back to show the details here. So we got 7:12, right? 7:10, 7:12. And then I said, hey guys, you have your last outfit. Why don't you guys go change? They came back. Here we are 15, 20 minutes later, roughly. 7:29, I shoot that natural light looking shot, but I add a little bit of flash. I do another one. So another close up. So now we're at 7:30. And then I say, okay, now let's come over here and let's do some let's put the flash back on you guys. And there's another image where I'm using that flash. Again, this is that double rainbow light that, for those who weren't here earlier, it's one light to the right, one light to the left, and I'm just lighting up the couple, you know, hitting them both with that light. So it's just kind of an example I thought that shows, oh, here's another here's a couple more images from that same shoot. There's one flash behind them, giving that little extra rim just so they separate from the sky. There's another one. This is Magsphere as well to my camera left. And then last shot, flashes in the exact same area. I just zoomed in closer with my, I believe I shot this with the 200, 7200. Yeah, 7200 at 168 millimeters. So just some ideas how you can basically, even though the sun is set, doesn't necessarily mean that I need to make it a flashy image. I can still use my ambient and my flash and balance it out so I can make it look like just a nice natural lit shot. So
and
Trevor, that helps.
was asking what were your settings on the dramatic images, and also Tanya is asking if you have a gel on.
Okay, I don't have a gel here. Sadly, it's only because I lost them at the time, so I hadn't replaced them. But it's a great question here. Basically, I wanted the sky to be warm anyways, so I don't know, because these are JPEGs. Let me see. I don't think it's going to show me. Yeah, it's not going to show me my settings. I would have guessed that my Kelvin temperature, my white balance temperature on a shot like this would probably have been around 7,000 because I had it pretty warm, you know, to warm up their skin. Warmer than a normal flash power would be, or excuse me, flash white balance would be. It looks like my settings on this shot were 1/200th of a second at 5.6 ISO 100. So the main difference is my ISO, because you can see here, you know, I'm going, well, obviously the aperture as well, but here my ISO is all the way up to 1600. So you guys can see those settings, right? When I'm showing my screen here?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. So, and then these ones right here, I just, again, I bring my ISO up a little bit so that I can actually still capture that sky. So I'm at ISO 800 f2.8, which is the lowest with, oh, I guess not with that lens. I was with the 85 there. Anyhow, and then 1/200th of a second to basically close down that ambient a little bit. So.
Awesome. Those are fantastic.
One interesting thing I'll just point out real quick about this one, Pi, is if you notice, I'm shooting at 1/40th of a second, and it's really just to, again, try to bring a little bit of that ambient out of the sky because I don't want the sky to be pitch black. So I'll shoot, you know, at a low a low shutter speed to help, you know, capture some of that ambient. But yeah, anyhow, I don't know where I'm going with this, but
no, that's fantastic. And I was going to show. I love all those images. One other simple lighting setup before I think we should probably get into the creative stuff is I want to show an example of just, so we talk about lighting with the direction of the sun. One of my other favorite rules to use is to simply light against the direction of the sun. So I have an image for that. So Trevor, you talked about cross or rainbow lighting. We talked about lighting with the direction of the sun for dramatic effect. And now I want to show you guys cross lighting. So basically, if you imagine the sun is coming left to right over the subjects, which creates this nice little rim light on their sides, and it creates a nice little highlight catch light on his face. I have a flash just placed in the opposite side going right to left. So if you imagine, basically, if I were to kind of show you my fingers, because that's the best way to do this, the sun's coming from one direction, the flash is going exactly against it. Now, in relation to the subjects, it's actually like kind of a twisted direction, right? So it's not necessarily going straight front and back. It's coming from the left, and this one's coming from the right. But what this does, and let me go back to screen sharing, is it's a very simple rule to create, and I'll show you this is the original shot. All I did was we put like our HDR natural color preset on this. Let's see. Get that to actually go. There we go. So you can see like it's literally the original shot is this guy, and then one click of the, sorry, let me go back. One click of this, and it brings it out, and you get, all you got to do is basically just adjust your white balance, and you get a really fantastic looking image. So what the beautiful part about this is it's a very simple lighting rule. If the sun is coming from one direction, you go to the opposite side, and the reason is it retains shadows. So once again, when we zoom in, we have retained shadow and light direction on their bodies, which really chisels them out, and it creates depth and dimension to the image. Not to mention it makes it look natural, like they're being lit in the scene, as opposed to this being like a, you know, like them being photoshopped and pasted onto the background. So again, just another super simple shot. Depending on your settings, this is at 1/200th of a second, f1.4 and ISO 100. So those of you can probably imagine we're going to be using an ND filter for this kind of a shot. We're using an ND filter because we're shooting wide open on a 24mm lens, And that ND filter allows us to cut down the light so we can keep the shutter speed at 1/200 a second. Again, these are things that we'll go into in depth in the full length courses in Lighting 101-2.1. But that flash is off to the right, and it's going to be firing at full power with an ND filter over the subjects because you're still in, bright sunlight. So,
Hi, Trevor.
Yeah.
Could you do me a favor when you're talking about flashes, especially when you're talking about sunset stuff? Just let them know if you're using gels or not, because we're getting a lot of questions about that.
Okay.
This one was not with a gel.
Okay.
In fact, I would be happy to share some images with gels. We can actually get into that.
Yeah, and Joe actually asked what level, or Julian asked what level. No, Joe, sorry. The comments keep coming in, and okay. So let's get my shiz together. Joe asked what level ND filter. Usually I just take around a 4 or a 5 stop with me. I have a square ND. It's a Tiffin water white. Yeah, Kinlan asked, is it the 5 stop? Yeah. I'll take around either my 4 or my 5 stop. It's just in my bag. I use the Tiffin water white. You can get it in a 4 or a 5. And it's just a square ND filter. And because I'm really lazy, I just have it in my bag and I just hold it directly over the lens. So as I'm firing, I just hold it over the lens, and that way I don't need to, screw anything in or, tighten anything. And it works over every single lens because it's a square and I'm just holding it. So I don't have to have different sizes of filter threads and all that kind of stuff. So just a 4 or a 5 stop is what I'd recommend.
Also, I think the type of gels that they're using are most likely going to be the ones that Magmod sells, the CTO gels that Magmod has in their basic starter kit. And I think if you guys have one, yep.
Yeah,
these are the basic starter kit, right, Trevor?
Yes, the one you have right there. Yeah, it's in the basic kit is what we call it. Those are the standard gels, so they're going to have different colors of warmth. Basically, if you want to add warmth to the skin, or if you want to be able to, you can actually even use them creatively, which I'll get into shortly. I have mine in this fancy wallet here, and so it's basically
your children on the backside.
What's that?
6 of them. Do you have all 6 of your kids on the backside of that wallet?
Do I have all 6 of my kids on the back?
Pictures of them. Oh. Not like you actually put your tiny people into your wallet.
I was looking on the back side trying to figure out what you meant. No, I don't. But I love it just to be able to keep things organized. So that's what I use for my gels. And then basically the way they work is, back in the days when we used to use the flimsy gels that would fly away in the wind and you'd have to tape them down or use adhesive. Now they're these, what do they call them? Polycarbonate, I think it is what it's called. It's basically kind of this hard gel, and you can just slide them right in the gel holder, or some of the modifiers will actually have gel holders built right into them, and so you can just use it that way. So, but yeah, and I don't know if we even mentioned it, but these are all magnet. So basically, I mean, this is all, it just magnetizes right to your flashes, making it really easy. So even if I wanted to stack something, I could just, put one there and then put the mag bounce on top of it, or, put the gel and then put the mag grid on top of it. And so it makes it really easy to be able to change things up and modify your light.
That's a fantastic system, and kudos to Spencer for kind of coming up with this idea. It's really changed the way we shoot. Scott asked, what's the straw for? I'm not sure what straw he's referencing.
Yeah, there's, in the standard set, there's a CTO, and there's also a filter called a straw filter. It's actually very close to a half CTO. It's tossed in my bag because I literally just shot this wedding on Sunday, and I didn't even clean everything up. But it looks just like a half CTO, essentially. I've heard that a straw, people like those better for skin tones and things like that. I haven't seen really a difference. So, Scott, that might be a good question for if you shoot over to the Magmod community, the SR Lounge community, maybe ask there, and you'll probably find people that are much more educated than Pi and I.
For sure you. Yeah,
CTO. Oh, Shivani just answered it. It means color temperature orange, or there's CTB, which is color temperature blue, which we can get into in just a second. Before we do that, though, can I share just a couple more images that I wanted to talk about real fast? So,
are you getting in the creative stuff right now?
We're gonna slide right into it if that's cool. Is that all right? I think
just to preface, this is basically like using Flash for creative effect, meaning stylistic. We're not intending to create something that looks natural. We're now creating stylistic kind of stuff, right?
Yeah. Before we get there, though, I just want to mention just a few more images. And then we'll go right into the creative stuff. Before we get into creative, you're just saying to make it look more dramatic and not so natural. I just want to point out, again, a lot of times people look at these speedlights and they say, oh, I can't create natural looking images. And this right here, this was shot not this last weekend, but the weekend before. It's just an image, very, very nice, simple light on my couple. And you can see this is right as the sun is setting behind that mountain, but it's not actually below the horizon yet. So again, I'm shooting at ISO 100, f3.2, 1/200th of a second. I'm basically using what you taught in that 101, which is essentially finding the ambient that I want and then using a mag bounce. And I had this one to the right. You can actually tell that because look at the shadows underneath her chin, for example, and you're going to see that slight shadow there. So I know the direction of my light, but I had it to my right, and I'm basically illuminating my couple. Now I had one more mag bounce all the way to the right, kind of hitting the guy from behind, but I think it was at such low power that it didn't make a huge difference. So really it was just one main light, one main mag bounce there. And then I just want to point out one more thing before we move on, because we were just talking about simple, and I want to point out that when you're using strobes, these pocket strobes, as you like to call them, Pi, or these speedlights, what's nice about them is you can put them in places where, like keeping it really simple, where you're like, hey, I'm gonna shoot this couple in this awesome seat at the fairgrounds, at the state fair, and I'm just gonna put this light down by their feet and just create an extra little rim light to make them pop. And not only that, but it was aimed up and it was hitting the dome above them and kind of casting a light back down towards them. Again, super, super easy. Here's one more just real quick shot. It was essentially, if you guys see that tree branch, I wish I could point this out, but the tree branch right above them, how it's kind of leaning down towards them a little bit, that's because there's a flash actually attached to that tree branch, just strapped onto it. And then I basically just lit them up just barely enough so that they're, again, kind of like you said, they're carved them out of that scene, because if they weren't lit up, they would basically kind of blend into that scene and they get lost. And so yeah, anyhow, I just thought I would mention those real quick.
You had one of those backlight images that it reminds me of one of the images that I've done recently, which is it's in the upcoming photographing the couple workshop. But we a lot of times we're shooting intentionally for different places to actually frame prints in the home, and in 2017 we're gonna really get into the business side of photography, which I'm really excited about, because we do a lot of things prior to the shoot in order to sell prints and to get things into their homes. And one of them is asking where they're actually going to place things. So if they define, I totally just knocked over my microphone. As they define areas of their home that they're going to place something, if it's a tall vertical spot, we're going to shoot it that way so it fits. Now, this is basically the shot that I'm going for, and I place them in this scene, and you can see, let's see here. It's at 1/20 of a second, f1.4, and ISO 100 at 85 millimeters. There's this tall building right behind them, but at anything wider than an 85, you end up seeing all the other junk in the frame. So you see all the other stuff outside of the building. So I got on the 85 because it has a really great look. This was actually the Sigma 85, and it was shooting at 1.4. The only problem was that they were falling into the building. So I placed flashes. This is just a standard flash right behind them, like maybe 5-10 feet, pointed directly at them, firing at full power. And what's going on right now is you can see that there's a green cast to the image. That's because we're using an ND filter again. So to get that shutter speed at 1/200th of a second, while also keeping our aperture at 1.4, we are using an ND filter, and that's what causes that little bit of greenish hue. And what we end up doing is I just end up creating this, it's a panoramic stitch. And this is basically a Brennizer method stitch with strobe. And we teach this in the Brennizer workshop, where we teach like this entire panoramic stitching technique. So once we have this, we take all of these images and we end up stitching it together to get to this shot. So this is literally photographed to fit that tall space that somebody might have, where, you know, they don't have necessarily a wide area, maybe it's somewhere in a hallway, maybe it's somewhere they have like just a narrow spot to hang in their homes. And we shoot this epic kind of photograph to fit that spot. And that's one of the reasons, or one of the ways you're going to sell prints, is by intentionally shooting to fit that spot. And you'll actually tell the couple, oh my gosh, this is going to look amazing in that spot that you guys talked about, or I'm shooting this image to fit in that little spot that you guys mentioned. So it creates a really unique look and a really fun image, and that lighting really chisels them out. It edges, you can see that like kind of etching that goes, like if I actually zoom into this, you can see how that light is slightly wrapping around her body and creating this line like right around everything, which just lifts them out of the scene just enough that our eyes are drawn in, and all the lines and everything bring us right into them. So
that's an awesome image.
Thanks, buddy. I had to show something, dude. All your photographs are freaking so good. I'm like, gotta show something.
No. Actually, hey, can I show a photo where you outdid me?
Sure.
I mean, there's a lot. All these photos you're showing you outdid me, but one where you blatantly outdid me. So I was lucky enough to have Pi as my second shooter. I basically said, hey, Pi, you want to come hang out? And he's like, yeah, let's go hang out. And I was like, let's go to Lake Tahoe. And he said, yeah, that would be a lot of fun. And I said, well, bring your camera so we can take some pictures. And he's like, yeah, that sounds cool. I'll meet you in Lake Tahoe. So he showed up, and I was like, all right, you're going to second shoot for me, right? Something like that?
Yeah, exactly.
No, and so we shot this wedding, and I had a ton of fun having Pi as my assistant. I just like saying that.
No, it's cool. You finish up, dude. Finish up, yeah.
I know.
I have something else to show.
I know what you're doing. You're pulling images out already. So no, but this is a compliment to Pi, because this is Pi's image. Oh, I guess I got to share my screen. Let me hold on one second.
I was just thinking about the time that I fooled you to come out to the desert to come and camping with me.
Yeah, that's true. Hold on. Shivani's gonna yell at me if I don't share my screen. All right, so I'm sharing my screen, right? So I was setting up the stand, getting the light ready so I can shoot this couple, and Pi actually shot this image, which is absolutely epic. I love this photograph. And then just to show you guys the difference of how you can shoot a scene entirely different. And again, Pi, on this photograph, you killed it. You won right here. Like, this is my favorite shot of these two. In this, nice. No, I'm being totally serious.
I'll take it. It's fine. Yeah.
But here's just something different. You can see this is where I stepped back, and I shot it with it was a wider lens, but I shot it with light, so you can see more of dramatic light versus natural light. What's that?
That's a pretty epic shot, man.
No, well, yours is. Now. Now, this one, you can actually see by the shadows, too, what kind of light I'm using, essentially. You can see one light going to the right, or one shadow going to the right, one shadow going to the left. So you know that I'm using a light that's essentially lighting them up from both sides, which is what I've talked about a couple times already. But yeah, that's just an example of that dramatic, how you can get creative in a situation and be able to share those photographs or create a scene, from a very naturally lit shot to a dramatically lit shot within seconds. And I mean, the pose was exactly the same. Wouldn't even change the client. So
yeah, I love that shot. And your shot's freaking amazing, that scene. It looks so good. I was just remembering that one time that we went out to the desert, and I was like, hey, Trevor, do you want to come out to the desert to hang out with me? And you're like, yeah, sure. And then when you got there, I was like, hey, dude, can you hold this light stand? And you're like, yeah, no problem. And I was like, okay, but I'm going to need you to like duck out of the way when I'm not taking a shot. And you're like, okay, I got this.
Okay, can you both stop this? And then we have like about 7 minutes left now.
7 minutes? I thought we were going another hour.
Right.
Hey, Charlie asked, do I travel with Manfrottos? I do travel with them, and after 4 years, mine have gotten destroyed. They don't really stack anymore, but I still absolutely love them. As far as Scott modifiers used on that shot, that one was before I was using a lot of the mag bounces and mag spheres and so forth. And so I had used a small, like a small little speedlight modifier, which I loved. I loved at the time. But honestly, nowadays, I use mag bounce for everything. In fact, can I actually show one more shot real quick? I just want to show something that, check this out. I thought this was interesting. The other day, I was comparing the difference between an umbrella and a mag bounce, because sometimes we're looking for this, we want to feel confident in the lighting that we're using, that it's actually going to produce what we want. And so this was a scene that I shot that it was on the, actually, maybe I should just leave it up here and let you guys decide. One of these was shot with an umbrella. One of them was shot with a mag bounce. The light was in the exact same spot. For those of you who are in the Magmod community, you've already seen this photograph, or you might have seen the video I produced on it. But it was basically, one was shot with the umbrella. It was a 46-inch umbrella, a Westcott one, and one of them was the mag bounce. And so I love this because for me, it gave me the confidence in knowing that, wow, using the mag bounce is going to be really easy for me to know that I'm getting essentially this large umbrella light. This is about 8 feet away from the subject and about 8 feet up in the air. So just to reveal, the one on the left is the umbrella, and the one on the right is the mag bounce.
Yeah, I love that example because it shows just like sometimes how minute these differences can be, and it gets in our head as photographers so often that it like prevents people from being creative and just getting out and doing, just getting out and doing stuff as opposed to like thinking about what gear you have.
I agree.
I wanted to bring up one last thing to kind of, I wish we had more time, but we do want to get to a Q&A, and I want to kind of encourage everybody to kind of think creative, because we've just barely touched in on this. Unfortunately, we do have a lot of courses available to you guys, but in Lighting 201, we talk about how modification of a scene can so dramatically change the way that it looks. Trevor, you have a temple shot. So while I'm pulling mine up, can you show that temple shot where it goes from like basically day to night?
Yeah.
Because based on your vision, I mean, you can transform a scene to be whatever you want it to be.
Yeah, for sure. This is actually, the interesting thing about this photograph is it was actually done early morning. And so this was literally, I had the couple coming out, or I shouldn't say coming out, but they were getting set. And I shot one photo where I just said, hey, Nate, look back towards Katie. I shot an image, and then I said, you know what, let's put a flash on here, because it was dark. The image on the right is actually more representative of what the situation looked like at that time. So the image on the left was, I lowered my, increased my ISO, lowered my aperture, lowered my shutter speed, and got that image on the left with what it looks like natural light. You can still see a little bit of the clouds behind the temple there. But then on the right, again, this is before sunrise, or right as the sun was starting to rise up. This is, I mean, literally at 5:30 in the morning. The image on the right is where I just put a little flash on them. Now this flash is actually camera left again. So all the way to my left here, and it's just barely outside the frame. And I raise it high enough so that I'm just getting a little bit of light casting over to them, just adding that little extra oomph, I guess you could say, to make them stand out.
No, it's fantastic. And I had one that I wanted to show, which is just thinking like on those same lines of thinking creatively and thinking of what you can do to transform a scene. This was at a local venue here in SoCal, and I went out for a nighttime shot, and I saw this door. They have this freestanding door that's right on this path, and so I basically set my camera up on a tripod. I got to 20 seconds f1.4 and ISO 800 on a 24mm lens shooting vertically, and I thought it looked cool, and I was gonna like kind of traditionally light this, but then I thought, you know, this couple just got married, and my vision for this was, what if we created a shot that basically was like their marriage is kind of the doorway to happiness or to heaven or the future or whatever it is. They also happen to be Led Zeppelin fans, so I thought Stairway to Heaven. Very good. So I thought, instead of lighting it in a way that I might normally do, I'm going to actually place the flash against the door. So I actually am firing the flash into the door, and it turns the door into like a whitened out background. And then I place the couple in front of it, and what's happening is it's just creating that silhouetted look, and the light is wrapping around them a little bit. It's falling onto the ground, and there's no photoshopping done here. There's no nothing. It's just simply transforming the way the door looks with a single flash pointed back at the door. And then all I did was I took my plate shots and covered the right and the left side of the frame, and we composited together. We just stitched them together in post, and we get this final image, which is kind of my vision of, you know, their happy future kind of thing after their marriage, so, or after their wedding. So just an idea of just how much you can transform something with very simple kind of imagining what you can do. Let me turn off the screen share. But imagining what you can do with your lights, and that's literally what Lighting 101 and Lighting 201 are designed to do for those that are just getting into lighting, is to help you to start imagining what modifiers are going to do, what different light setups are going to do, just everything that's going to, you know, change by simply adding that light in. So check those out. And then for those that are already in SR Lounge Premium, we have tons of great content coming out. We have the whole wedding workshop series. We have the pano stitch. We have recreating golden hour. All that stuff is already available to you guys, and a lot more great stuff coming along the way. We also do have $75 off. Shivani will post that coupon code, which is going to be active for a, like, what is it, 24 hours or something like that? 24 hours?
Yeah, 24 hours. I'm posting it right now. There you go.
And Jennifer asked if we used a tripod for the Stairway to Heaven shot. Yes, we did. Also, let's see, what is lighting the flower in the foreground? Bjorn, the light in the foreground is coming off the other venues. So there's actually like another venue off the left side, and we're shooting at like 1/10 of a second, f1.4 and ISO 800. That's enough time where basically any little bit of light bleeding from another location, like your phone, like if your phone screen is on, it's going to light something in the scene. So it's picking up little bits of light from whatever's happening around it. So that's what lighting the flower.
Pi, there's a couple questions I saw that, do you mind if I know we're wrapping things up, but do you mind if I address just a couple questions I saw pop up?
Absolutely.
So,
and also, I want to mention that you guys do have a like a promo, right? That you wanted to.
Yes, we do. Let me, here, I'll grab that in just a second. I think I know what it is, but I don't want to guess. So let me make sure. But one thing I want to, just a couple questions that I saw you guys ask, and one of them was regarding large groups. And I can't remember if somebody had said, what about 4 rows of people or something around those lines? This is actually 2 mag bounces, one again, camera right, one camera left. I'm just creating that big spread expanse of light, and it was outdoors. They actually stepped outside. We shot this photograph, and then they started launching these fireworks that the crowd didn't know was coming. And so that's why we brought them outside to shoot it. So for those who are interested, this is a large group. This was shot with the mag bounce, so the mag bounce on camera, which I can hold up in just a second when I stop sharing my screen. And then probably one other thing that had come up a few times, I know Shivani, you had asked about it as well, you know, that people were mentioning it, was regarding gels. And so I thought I would just, I know we're out of time. I know we've already gone over a half hour, but I just want to mention that you were just saying, Pi, how you can have this creative vision and you can actually change up the scene depending on what you can imagine with that scene. As photographers, that's one of the biggest things. And I don't know if there's even a way to teach this besides just practicing it and knowing what tools you have at your disposal. But this was a scene where the sky behind them, this is about 15 minutes after sunset, and it was a gray, ugly, bland sunset, which actually is unusual for Arizona. I know some of you guys feel like every sunset's like that. Arizona, we're lucky enough to have these gorgeous sunsets a lot of times. This was gray and bland and gross. And so I thought, you know what, let's make this more exciting. So I added a blue light, or a blue gel, excuse me, I put a blue gel, a CTB gel, over the top of my flash, and I fired on the couple, and then I warm it up in camera a lot. So I'm shooting at like 10,000 Kelvin, and sometimes I'll even push it further in Lightroom to like 12,000 or 15,000 Kelvin. And when I do that, the skin tones on the couple now are going to go normal, but the light behind them, or the ambient, is going to go warm. Now, in this same exact scene, I thought, you know what, since we did it that way, let's go ahead and switch it up. Let's do a orange light on the couple. And this is literally within minutes. I mean, as long as it took me to go over and switch out my gel, now we have a blue sky with more of that orange light on the couple. And so it's just an example of how you can use gels creatively. Oh, here's one more example. This was actually, the sky was, again, not that exciting this night. And so I put a green gel on the couple. I lit up the couple with this green fluorescent gel. And by doing that, I can change the white balance either in Lightroom or in my camera, in Lightroom if you shoot RAW, and make it more, add more magentas. And when you add magenta, it's going to balance off that green tone, so their skin tones look normal, but you're getting that nice, pretty pink sky, which is really fun to actually shoot it and show the couples and say, hey, look, I just made this otherwise bland sky look amazing. So, yeah. So.
I was going to mention, I think Karen, I believe you're a premium member. There's a lot of group techniques that we can show you. And if it's Karen Border, I think you're in premium. Check out Lighting 201. We talk about a lot of different techniques in terms of lighting, single light techniques, umbrella techniques, everything. And also these mag bounce techniques are fantastic too. There's many, many ways that you can possibly do it. So I think that's it. Shivy, do you have anything else to leave before we end out?
No, but I do think that we got a lot of really solid questions in here, and I think that this is an obvious answer to the fact that we have to do some articles linked with Magmod, because people have a lot of questions about the differences between, or the similarities / subtle differences between using the bounce versus the sphere, and when you use grids and when you use the beam. So I definitely do want to talk to you and Pi about maybe doing something like an article series about Magmod and SR Lounge. So
if these guys are all interested, please, everybody that's watching, let Magmod know, shoot them emails, shoot them whatever, tell them that we want a full premium workshop that goes through the ins and outs of using each of these modifiers, and we'll create it for you guys. So, but we need to make sure that there's enough community support behind that. I want to thank you guys all for tuning in. Thanks, Trevor, for coming along, and I guess your amazing images.
No, hey, thank you, Pi. I really appreciate it. I was going to mention, I didn't get to mention earlier, I didn't have the link on hand. You guys, I don't have any coupon right now for Magmod. It's specifically because Magmod doesn't do a whole lot of sales during the year, but we have Black Friday around the corner, and there's a little bug in my ear that said there might be something happening that day. So if you guys are interested in learning about the Black Friday sales that are coming up around the corner, or that could be coming up around the corner, Go to, I just posted it here. Let's check it out again. It's http:/. Okay, so magmod.co/BF. BF for best friend or Black Friday. And anyhow, you can put your email in there, and they will actually send you an email on Black Friday, and it will say, hey, here's the deals. And if I'm not mistaken, there might be a time limit on a few of them, so definitely be on the lookout for those at midnight on Black Friday.
I love when Chivy laughs at somebody else's dad jokes for a change.
No, I mean, it's still pertaining to you. He called you his best friend. I thought he was going to say boyfriend, but I'm so glad he said best friend.
I'll be boyfriend.
Oh, goodness.
All right, guys. Thanks so much for watching and tuning in.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, bye. Thanks, Chief.
Bye.
Bye.
See y'all.